Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be going over the developer Q&A that was on Thursday the 26th, and kind of just giving a shorter version of it. These things usually last an hour or more, and I just try to shorten those up as quick as I can while still disseminating the information. This particular one, less questions but more explanations, which I definitely like this one better because of that. And yeah, I have heard this before, but yes, I will be like reading off of something because I take notes while I watch this so I don't forget anything because like I said, it's like over an hour long. So the first question was about global cooldown changes. So if you're not in the beta yet or you haven't seen the funny warrior gif of them clicking on all their cooldowns, and there's a global cooldown for each one now, like you can't just click your cooldowns and it doesn't affect you. So they basically put global cooldown on everything. And some people are not very happy about this. They are going to scale it back a little bit on things, but basically you're just going to get used to it. It's kind of like old classic WoW in a way. And if you don't want to have 4 cooldowns that you click on, then you do have to take another talent then, and they just need to make the talents more competitive, or they need to change the way the cooldown works to where it's not something that you absolutely have to need to do damage. So let me go ahead and kind of read what he was saying. Why make a change that people don't like? They know people wouldn't like it at first. They discussed that in the forums, but they have more of a long-term view. And because of that long-term view of the game, I wrote down no new World of Warcraft. So some people have speculated that they're going to make a new World of Warcraft. And this pretty much just confirms what I thought, is they're just going to keep making this game better, micro, as they go on in the margins. So an example he used was in Cataclysm. There was portals every zone around the world, a guild summon spell. No lock or stone was needed. It was very convenient, but they took it away to make people have to actually travel around the world. Because in Cataclysm, you could just log in and, okay, I'm going to go to Oldham. I know I did that when I farmed the camel mount. Never had to actually go there. There are some changes coming up. Heroic Leap, Infernal Strike off of global cooldown. The move where the hunters fly back. I can't think of it right now for some reason. But you'll be able to shoot when you're flying back. That's just some of the changes they're making. Things that make sense, basically. The first part of the change was about offensive cooldowns, trying to pull back importance of multiple stack cooldowns, like the warriors. All your damage is during your cooldown window. They want to stop that. Too many offensive cooldowns that you can macro that empower future actions. Kind of touched on that already. And instead make cooldowns do some initial damage instead of only in that window of damage. Example he used is if you're in a fight and you get a random boss effect that hits you while you're in your cooldown window, you're basically just not going to parse in that fight. And that doesn't seem really fair or fun, so they do want to change that. How are they changing class design while losing artifact traits? I didn't really like this question because it kind of just seemed like someone complaining about losing the artifact traits. Here's a long answer, but I did TLDR. They added way too many things with artifacts in hindsight, so they added like all these abilities, all these different things that modified your moves. So there's just too many, so quantity was an issue. So losing the stuff hurts a lot worse than normal because there were so many things added. They'll try not to add that many things to your class in one expansion again, so that way when you lose it inevitably or they retune you, you don't feel like you're losing everything. But they basically just feel like they added too many things to worry about with all the different artifact abilities. And by the end of the expansion, of course, you're used to them because you had them for the whole expansion. But especially at the beginning of the expansion, it was just a lot of modification to your class already. Will you be able to change your traits to Azerite armor? So if you don't know about Azerite armor at all yet, so you'll get armor pieces, and 9 of them, so it's like your head, shoulders, chest, etc., etc. 9 pieces of your gear you'll be able to modify with Azerite and have like little talents, almost like its own separate talent tree. Will you be able to change your traits, and is the question. Yes, it's not in the beta yet, but they're working on implementing it. They don't want them to feel like a talent rose, so they don't want it to feel like talents in that you have to change them between bosses, for an example. So right now, like let's say you're a boomkin, you have to change your talents between like every boss pretty much. They don't want you to have to do that with your Azerite gear. So right now, basically, they have a world questing or questing talent, tanking, healing, damage, and it's pretty laid out like that in that way. To where it's, and then as you get down lower, it's just like damage, defensive, kind of things like that to make it a little bit more intuitive. Like you don't have to worry about changing it between every fight. You're like, I'm going to play this in this way. Now, of course, there might be some times where you might want to, but in general, they don't want you to have to do that. they're going to make it like a talent respec in Classic WoW. So if you didn't play in Classic, you just have to go to your trainer. So obviously it won't be your trainer, it'll be just some guy with Azerite powers. And for a low gold cost, you will be able to change your talents and your Azerite piece of gear. Based on how, so if you do it to 9 pieces of gear 5 times in 20 minutes, it's going to cost you probably thousands and thousands of gold. However, if you just do it like once a day, it'll cost you like 10 gold each time. So it's going to ramp that down. So it's not like, in Classic WoW, I know it didn't. The decay was very slow actually, but it didn't cost that much back then either. So I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. Basically, they're just trying not to get you to change it every 5 minutes. Next question: how will casual players deal with the Azerite system if they want to play more than one spec? They want the spec to be more friendly to off specs than Legion was. Earlier in Legion, every AP token mattered, mostly put into the main spec. Couldn't play too much off spec. Using the necklace for every spec, so no multiple artifacts. So you have like an artifact power necklace. This will be used for every single spec. It'll be the only necklace you have. Instead of having like 3 different weapons, like in Legion, or 4 different weapons if you're a druid, you just have one necklace. You may eventually use one item for tanking, one item for healing, one for DPS, or you might cross-roll them. It'll be up to you based upon what your role is. One example I use is if you're like a Mythic Raider and you're like a Shadow Priest, but for a handful of fights in the raid, you actually are the 5th healer, then you might have more than one piece of gear, so you don't have to keep changing it. But for most people, it won't be that big of a deal. Well, Azerite traits from more lucrative sources like Mythic Rating, Alter Playstyle, or are they passives? The way this question was worded was kind of weird. But basically, the eye level of the armor enhances the strength of the trait in the Azerite system. There's up to 9 on 9 pieces of gear that are each very strong. I think that sounds kind of cool. They should affect playstyle, and they are designed to at least. So an example I used was the Mage Fire Bracers. They were like the best legendary, and Fire Mages had to have them, especially early in the X pack. And later on, they were still really strong too. But so you'll have the option for, let's say, not necessarily, but let's say you had the option on every single piece of armor. So maybe after you do it on 4 pieces of armor, it equals the power of that legendary bracers. If you continue to do it on all 9 pieces, it might be twice as strong as legendary bracers, but you won't have that random chance of, oh, I need to get the legendary bracers. Everybody will have that choice if they want to make that choice. Island Expedition rewards, other than Azerite, artifact power for your necklace is the core reward, actually. I didn't even know there was artifact power. There's going to be gear and cosmetics as well, but the best way to get artifact powered will be the Island Expeditions. Dungeons will be the best way to get gear, as normal. And you can choose your content based on the rewards you're chasing. So PvP will obviously be the best place for PvP gear. So it's going to do an incentive to do different things. Earlier in Legion, people were just 3-chesting Maw +2 all day to get artifact power until they changed the way artifact power in Mythic Pluses worked. And they want to avoid falling into something like that, to where people are just running a Maw +2, getting gear from it that was at least usable, but mostly just farming the artifact power doing it. Gearing in PvP in Battle for Azeroth is it random or vendored? I actually did a video on this, which I mentioned. Random reward structure for BFA PvP still end of the match rewards and weekly chests. People want to buy an item they want though. And I did a video on this recently. Conquest points are basically back, and as you gain points, you can choose a piece of nice gear every week. If you have a high rating, you can get the better gear faster. I did a video on this. If you want to go back and look for it, I do explain this a little bit more in depth. This is really cool. This is one of my favorite things. I didn't even notice this yet, even though I am in the beta. I've only got to play it 2 nights so far. Large BGs are now split from the BG queue. Basically talk about this. They will be retitled Epic BGs. So I can't even say it, Alteric Valley. Basically, there's a massive difference between Alteric Valley and Warsong Gulch, for example, 2 classic ones. And just because you queue for your BG, you might not want to do an Alteric Valley. You might want to do something more quick, or more where one individual is more powerful, like a Warsong Gulch. Instead of blacklisting all the big ones, which some people do, you queue for the smaller scale or the larger scale ones. So right now, the 40 versus 40s are the larger scales, and all the other ones are considered smaller scale. What I don't like about this is I actually don't blacklist based on the size. I blacklist the Mists of Pandaria ones because I really don't like them. And those are the ones that I blacklist. However, he saved me on this question because Winter Grasp, for an example, could be returned to be in the Epic BG queue, something I absolutely love. So Think Alteric Valley. Think I can't even think of the one, but the one where you can parachute in, you capture the docks. Alliance always goes for the docks. Horde always gets like the center and the flying machine thing, and the flying boat that you can jump down into the bases. I have no idea why the the title of this BG is escaping my head for how often I've done it, but yeah. So that one, AV. Think Wintergrasp. Think all of the outdoor world PvP things that they've done, including Asheran. Um, they could eventually be in this epic BG cube, but they will have to retune it, obviously, make it 40 versus 40, and make it not last too awful long, much like they did in Alteric Valley by adding the resources, because Alteric Valleys used to last days and weeks. I said that I would queue for Wintergrasp all day if I could. Um, Question about deactivating racial abilities in rated PvP. People change race based on which racial is most powerful in PvP. It's very common. It also happens in PvE, of course, but it's very highly contested in PvP circles. They're looking at the outliers and trying to retune the ratios instead of deactivating them. They want them to be relevant, but not right or wrong choice. So they've already retuned the Blood Elves a little bit, and they've retuned humans a little bit so far in BFA. So next question, smaller power gains in BFA than Legion. Basically, the question was about people just being one shot in World PvP, and then also, which something that I do very often on my Paladin, and sometimes I feel bad for the people I do it to, and also how they had to in 7.2 rescale the world to make the creatures stronger. For raid and dungeons progression in game, there's a certain level of power gains that are needed. Otherwise, you might be able to raid with old gear no problem. So they don't want you raiding Emerald Nightmare gear into Tomb of Sargeras, for example, because the power level isn't that much different. The power gains are similar to those from 2008 2009. So it hasn't changed, even though a lot of people feel like it has. It's about 10 to 15% per raid tier, basically. So if you're a heroic raider and you get all the heroic gear from one raid and then you do the next heroic tier, you're going to be 10 to 15% stronger on average, basically. Set bonuses and stuff, which are something of the past now, not included, I don't believe. Just core strength based on your strength or intellect, and then your haste, mastery, all that kind of stuff. Of course, with Raid Finder Mythic Raiders, there'll be a fairly large power gap because they're constantly going to be that 10 to 15% stronger, because it's 10 to 15% per tier as far as raid tier, and then Raid Finder, normal, heroic, mythic as well. So obviously there is a power gap there. In Legion, they made gear not matter in PvP for the most part. They went too far with that, they think. They're going to try to fix World PvP a little bit without making the gear not matter at all, but it's more about being equally tuned instead of the gear not mattering. So basically, they do want to stop the one-shotting in World PvP if they can. Even if it's basically the example you used is in Legion, if you're level 107 and your friend was level 100 just starting out, you could level up with them. You both were getting experience. He could heal you even though he's 7 levels lower than you, and it was fairly, it was nice. It was like you were the same level. The mobs that you fight health scaled. So they basically just want to use that same kind of system but in PvP form, to where the fight shapes around the levels of the people in the fight, which isn't necessarily fair to the higher level people, but it is what it is. It's World PvP. I think they just want it to be a little bit more even, and I definitely understand the sentiment of it. Why Void Elves over High Elves was a question. I didn't really think that's important, but I don't even know why I wrote this one down. But Blood Elves are basically High Elves, he said, which is true. It's not completely the same, but they are basically the same thing if you look at the lore. I mean, they are a derivative of the High Elves, if nothing else. However, Ian suggested that if Alliance don't like it, if they wanted to be a High Elf, then they need to join the Horde and play a Blood Elf. And I wrote down, I will find Ian in war mode and slay him for telling me to join the Horde. DKs and allied races, just not make them have heritage armor to make this work. Before it was said that they didn't want Death Knights and Demon Hunters to be able to have allied races because they wanted you to start at the level, because they didn't want you to get a head start in getting the heritage armor. You get a heritage armor by maxing out level of a allied race. They said no plans for hero classes in BFA to get to play the allied races, but they won't rule it out going further. It's in fact something that they probably will do. The heritage armor is only part of it. They just want you to start at level 20 for now, just not the first aspect of the allied races. Basically, what they're going to do then is they're going to take the storyline out of it a little bit. So if you wanted to play a Death Knight orc, just regular orc, not allied race, you would still start in that same area where all Death Knights start. But if you played Death Knight, well, let's just say Dark Iron Dwarf, you would still start wherever the Dark Iron Dwarfs start. You wouldn't start in that Death Knight area. So eventually, it'll take the storyline out of it because you'll just be a random Death Knight that's there. Obviously, they'll just have like some Death Knight trainer and just say, well, this guy is raising people from the dead or something like that. And they'll just make something stupid up like that. But they want the Death Knights and the Demon Hunter mains to be able to play other races as well. Loot methods in BFA. So this is a big contentious thing I did a video about. Basically, they're replacing everything to personal loot. The only place where there's not personal loot in the game is guild groups during raid content. That's the only place. Every dungeon you do, everything else is just personal loot. And so it's a very small percent of people that use like Master Looter, for example. Personal loot, they want personal loot to be consistent throughout the world. So it's everywhere else. They want it to be just everywhere. They understand for GMs or Loot Council or the Master Looter, you feel like you're losing power and losing, and maybe you're completely fairly divvying out the loot, and they understand that you feel like you're losing the power and that it doesn't feel good to lose anything. But the best line he said during this question was, "It's not personal loot anymore. It's just loot. This is how it is." So this is just the way it is. It's the way it is everywhere else in the world, and it's going to be the way it is in the raids as well. It's just something you have to get used to. It's not that huge of a deal. Some people have run stuff and shown that you actually get more loot by doing personal loot anyways, on average. So just get over it, I guess. I'm somebody who doesn't get a lot of loot from personal loot and benefits a lot from Master Loot because I'm I shouldn't say very, but I feel like I'm a very valuable member of my raid team. So I'm often rewarded with loot before other plate wearers are, and I am very happy about that. And so I'll probably end up losing out during this, and I still support it. So I think everyone else should give it a chance too. How many raid appearance sets? How many appearance sets will be in a raid per armor type? Just one, so plate, cloth, leather, mail. Yes, but more types per tier. Something that they have gone over before in a way. In terms of Legion, if you kill something in Emerald Nightmare, stuff you'll get would be corrupted with Red Nightmare looking gear. So you'd have plate gear that looked like maybe leather gear that was from Emerald Nightmare. All of it would look the same kind of theme to it. Obviously, it'd be different because it'd be plate, so you'd be more hulking and maybe more metal in it. But you would have that same kind of look to it. If you killed Nighthold bosses, you would get like the elf looking gear. And if you killed Tomb of Sargeras bosses, you would get demon looking gear. And so that's how it's going to be. And it's also going to be for the dungeons that come out during that tier too. So each dungeon can have its own kind of look as well. Not necessarily every dungeon will, but if it's like a troll dungeon, then you'll have troll kind of gear. If it's I don't know, an animal type dungeon, maybe you'll have like a tracker or hunter looking type of gear. I'm thinking like Shadowfang Keep or something. Or there's probably even better examples than that. But that's kind of how that'll work. That looks like about it. This is a long video. However, it's a lot less long than an hour. So yeah, hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to ask below. Maybe I talked too fast or stumbled over some words somewhere. Feel free to ask below and I'll get back to you. And other than that, everybody have a good one. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, go ahead and please subscribe below. You can catch my gaming thoughts and activities on Twitter at RealKneecap, and you can also find me playing live on Twitch at KneecapKilla. Hopefully I'll see you soon, and of course, everybody have a good one.